Okay.
And can I introduce you a little bit and then you can introduce yourself a little more? Okay. All right, guys. Happy Saturday. I'm glad you guys are here. I think this is going to be really valuable. I'm so excited. So, Monica and I have been kind of working with the Enneagram here and there for probably the past year, I would say. And it has been so fascinating to learn about ourselves, about each other, about our spouses, about team members, because it really allows you to lean on your strengths and to see the strengths in other people, and then maybe what their motivation for doing things. So it's just been really helpful. And I should have had it pulled up, but a really great quote about leadership is something like, knowing yourself is like, to be a great leader, you have to really know yourself. And so I think for us as business owners, this is one of the best things we can do for developing our businesses, our teams, and just growing. I met Andrea in February at Susie's school. She was a coach there. And I loved her so much right away. She's so warm and she has a really great, I love her approach to the Enneagram. She uses it as a tool, not a crutch. She uses it lovingly. I think you guys are all going to walk away from today just feeling really good about yourself and just seen also. So she just does a really great job. If you're not following her on Instagram, follow her on Instagram. Maybe she can share her handle in a bit. But we're just so excited to have you, Andrea.
Thank you. I am so excited. Thank you for that welcome and introduction. That was so nice. I just want to start out by saying thank you for having me. I know Saturday mornings, especially as school is ending and we're gearing up for summer, it can be a little crazy. So hello to everyone here and everyone listening to the replay. I am excited to be here. I do think the Enneagram is a powerful tool, but I tell people I'm not passionate about the Enneagram. I'm passionate about people. And I just think the Enneagram is a really great tool because it allows for fluidity. It doesn't try to put us in a box. It allows for movement. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. But I'm excited and ready to dive in. And I don't know if it would be helpful for me to share my screen. I do have a presentation. I don't know if, would that be helpful? Yay, nay? Okay.
Let me see if I can do that. Does that give you the share screen button? What I just did?
Got it.
Perfect.
So let's see, let me pull everything up. I've got to actually figure out how to do this. Okay, hang on just a minute. How do I, everything is frozen right now for me. I can't get to it. Sorry, Zoom is always, okay. Let's see. Y'all, I'm so sorry. I can't find my cursor right now.
Oh, that's okay.
Oh, did it work?
No, let me.
No, it's not working. How about now? Can you see? Because I've got my screen up here. Can you see it?
No, let me try something else.
Okay.
I'll make you the host for. Oh, I'm afraid to do that.
Okay, that's all right. I will not.
How about do you want me to share my screen and I have the presentation?
I didn't send you the presentation.
Oh, okay, actually. Okay.
Yeah, but I can. I'll tell you what I will do after. Let me.
Oh, there we go, Andrea.
Okay. Yay. Okay.
Yay.
Woo! That was me. That was user error. Sorry about that. Okay, so this. I don't just want to read from slides, so this doesn't have everything, but I did send the PDF. If you had a chance to print that out, I just really wanted that to be a resource for you if you want to take notes on that. If you have just your computer to take notes or a journal, to me, it's just really helpful to not have to write every single thing down. So I hope this will be helpful. But hello, my name is Andrea. My handle, my website, everything is Andrea N. Lowe, because Andrea Lowe is actually an English actress. So I wasn't able to get that handle or website. But welcome to our Enneagram presentation. Just a little bit about me. I have both a BS and MA in education. I tell people an educator by heart and trade. It's in me. I love to inspire, encourage, empower I've been a classroom teacher. I currently am teaching kindergarten through 4th grade. I've been a nonprofit leader. I'm a writer and speaker, certified Enneagram coach, and an office supplies lover. I love Sharpies and Post-its. So if you are at all familiar with the Enneagram, you might be familiar with Ian Cron. He wrote The Road Back to You, which is kind of the #1 book for when you're just starting the Enneagram. And that's in a resource that I actually sent Katie this morning to send out after this. It's just got a bunch of books that I put together for each Enneagram type, which we'll talk about later. But he says the Enneagram is a tool that awakens our compassion for people just as they are, not the way that we hope or wish they would become. So I think that's really important. And really, my goal with the Enneagram is for us to not only gain an understanding of ourselves and how to grow, but really to gain that compassion for ourselves and others and just the different worldviews. The Enneagram, I want to start out with what it's not first. It's not a box. I don't want people to ever feel like it's a limit that's placed on them. It's not a shield or a sword. I never want it to be used as a weapon or a protection. And I talk about this a lot. Sometimes we try to hide behind our personalities instead of trying to refine the sharp edges of ourselves. And I've heard people say, oh, well, she's an Enneagram, XYZ. So of course she's going to act like that. I don't ever want it to be a weapon, but I also don't want us to hide behind, oh, well, that's just the way I am. I'm very direct and it hurts people's feelings, but that's just how I am. It's also not a diagnosis or a prescription. And it's not an absolute way of understanding people. You can absolutely have wonderful relationships without knowing the Enneagram. It is just a model to study dominant personality traits, to better understand abilities, weaknesses, gifts, and challenges, to help us understand ourselves and others. But most importantly, it is simply a tool. So I hope that is what you will come away with. Enneagram simply means 9, a 9-figure diagram. People get really confused with the star shape, or they get really thrown off by that, but really all Enneagram means is a 9-figure diagram, and it has 9 points. So, and just some terms for us to be familiar with. There are 9 types that we're going to talk about today. Excuse me. There's also what's called wings. We're not going to go a lot into this. The wings are just the 2 adjacent types to your dominant type. We're going to talk a little bit about lines and arrows and a little bit about the intelligence centers the instinctual centers that we'll talk about right now. So this is our trying to think if this is our gut center, the 8s, 9s, and 1s, and the way I want you to, there's also a head center, and the way that we distinguish between gut and head is those who live in their gut usually do before they think. So they just know the right thing, they just know in their gut and they do it rather than really weighing out the pros and cons that someone who really thinks about things would do. 8s, 9s, and 1s all struggle with anger, but they do that in different ways. 8 show it, 9s ignore it, and 1s repress it. And then they all have a common desire for justice. And I'm just sharing this just so you kind of have a brief overview, that we are not going to go deep into this, but I just kind of want you to see how we all fit together. Our heart center, or our feelings people, these are our type 2s, 3s, and 4s. They all deal with shame in different ways, and they all are looking for significance. This center is the one that's most, they're usually most concerned about the way that they appear to other people. And 2s and their feelings go outwards, so they really feel and sense the emotions of others. 3s will often just ignore emotions. They have learned that somewhere along the way, it's better to not have emotions to succeed than it is to really be in their emotions. And then 4s are very introspect, and they are often known to say things like, melancholy adds a sweet sadness to the soul. They're not afraid of those painful emotions that most of us just avoid at all costs. And then we have our head center, and these are our thinkers. They struggle a lot with anxiety, and they are looking for security. And so our 5s the way they deal with anxiety is they'll do a lot of research. They want to know as much as they can. Sixes really deal with anxiety, and that they're the ones that express that the most through that might affect them the most physically, and also they might talk about their anxiety more. And then sevens are trying to ignore their anxiety by filling it with experiences, things, and people. So, all right, let's jump into our type ones. The reason I'm not going over the behaviors, you'll notice on the sheet that I sent you, there are at their best and at their worst. The Enneagram is more about the motivations of each type. We can all have any behavior, but it's really about the motivations behind those behaviors. So those are just some kind of typical things. But as you dig into the Enneagram, you realize that even each type can look so different, even if you are the same type as someone else. So really today, I'm just going to talk about the fear of the type and the message that they long to hear. So ones really do not want to be bad, evil, or wrong. They have an inner critic in their head that's telling them constantly, that wasn't good. Why'd you do it that way? And they're very critical and harsh on themselves, which can often come off as critical and judgmental to others as well. But really, they are just really able to view the world the way that it should be. And they just need to know that they're good. And so they're constantly looking at things almost in a black and white way: good, bad, right, wrong. That's how a one thinks. So like I said, they can struggle sometimes with that critical nature. And this is what I was talking about with the arrows and lines. Under stress, a type 1 will move to a 4. And when I say stress, initially that might be a negative reaction. They might turn their anger inward, and they might become more depressed. But really, as we become more aware of this movement, they can become more creative and expressive in times of stress. So I don't want you to think about our movement when we are physically under stress. It can be negative, but once we become more self-aware and we realize, oh, actually, this is teaching me something, and I need to pull things that are not maybe intuitive or natural with my personality type. And then in growth, they move towards that type 7, and they might become more or less critical and really just more enthusiastic and optimistic. They'll pull from that 7. So let's talk a little bit about leadership. And I didn't put this in the slideshow, but I want to focus on leadership. So on your sheet, you'll see that the leadership superpowers, every type has superpowers. And I've highlighted what I would consider the leadership superpowers of each type. So type 1s are really great at refining those processes and making them. So let's just talk about you in your business right now, Isaiah. You are probably, if you're a type 1, you're probably great at knowing everything about the products that you're selling. You probably have a very streamlined system. You're probably great at customer service, getting back to people. You just have things down. I want to caution you ones, just because that the perfectionist side of a 1 is really that moral piece. Ones are often stereotyped as being almost having those OCD qualities and being very organized or very clean, but that's not what the perfectionist side is talking about for a type 1. It's really that good, bad, right, wrong. And so I would just challenge and caution ones that if things aren't perfect, it's okay. And not to beat yourself up if something falls through the crack or something doesn't go perfectly. It's okay. And to give yourself grace, because when ones are able to give themselves grace, they're able to impart that to others, and it doesn't come off as critically as it sometimes does. And when Katie and I were talking about doing this, she wanted me to include books that each type can read, really in pursuits of becoming better leaders. And so for the type 1, I love Brene Brown. I only used a few of her books, but man, I could put them all here. And I think this is a great book for anyone to read. But for the ones, the reason The Gifts of Imperfection is going to be such a powerful read for type 1s is because of that strong inner critic. And this will really challenge them to find beauty in the imperfections of life. So those are our type 1s. And I don't know, we'll have time for Q&A, but if you have a question, you might want to just put it in the comment box or jot it down so we can hit those at the end. But those
Andrea, could we, like, if anybody is a 1 who wants to be like, yes, this is me, I'd love to, maybe we could stop the share for just a second so I can see their faces. Is that
any type 1s today?
Let's see. I'm going to stop the share.
Okay.
Okay. Monica is.
When you talk about superpowers, I feel like that's a little bit of me. But yeah. I know so little about Enneagram. I feel like I need to keep absorbing more. But when you said that, that totally hit home. Like, you'd rather be like, know everything about the products and be like A1 customer service. That's kind of me. But also, I'm not really OCD or neat and tidy by any stretch. So
totally. And you don't have to be. And another thing, I'm sorry.
No, I wasn't saying anything. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Another thing that I'm so glad you said that, because often people will tell me, oh my goodness, I think I see myself in all of these or a lot of them. And of course you do. You are a complex and dynamic person. And the Enneagram allows for that. You actually have all of the types within. We each have all of the types within us, but we're looking for that dominant type. So those core motivations are really what's going to speak to that. But it doesn't mean that you won't have the other types within you as well.
So I know Kim said she is, and I feel like Lindsay Costello has said she was a 1 at some point too. So we have quite a few 1s on this team. And you know, one of our leaders, Monica, is a 1. Monica, does this speak to you?
Yes, everything.
She was vacuuming before this call.
Oh,
reorganizing.
Yes, that makes sense. And 1s are very responsible. They're the ones that we know we can rely on. They're getting all the things done. So they have so many strengths and powers like every type, but our 1s are really going to be those responsible ones that want to make sure everything is perfect so that when people come through, they just have the best experience possible.
Yeah, you see it even in like when you go to her house, if she has a dinner, it's just, she has put so much effort into making it so, you know, perfect and beautiful. So everybody has a great experience. Even I was thinking, Monica, because we had them over for dinner last night, even the way you set up like the buffet line, it's been thought, she's put enough thought into it so that you're going to go through the buffet line in the most enjoyable, you know, way. And I'm often, you know, jealous of that or envious of that quality because my brain does not work like that. And then last night, here's another example. She came in, we were all sitting outside. She came in to clean my kitchen so that when I woke up this morning, I didn't have to do that. Now that is a 1. And I mean, it's so appreciative. I'm so appreciative of that. But I think often, Monica, of when you do things, I remember that you're motivated by that right or wrong. Remembering that you like see things as this is right or this is wrong is really helpful for me when I'm interacting with you.
You guys are so sweet. You're gonna make me cry.
But I really like that book recommendation, Andrea. Have you read that, Monica?
I've listened to part of it on audio. I have not finished the whole book, but yes, I thought that might be a perfect book for me.
Okay.
And I have a strong 1 wing. And so I have a really soft spot for 1s, for that perfectionist side that comes just from the critical nature that 1s are toward themselves, right? You always want to be perfect, and almost you don't want to do things if it can't be perfect. In this book, it was so great for me just to be like, okay, yes, things don't have to be perfect. I mean, whatever is going to be perfect anyway, but it can still be beautiful, and just looking for that in ourselves and in everything around us.
Well, thank you.
And I like how you said, if, you know, as a 1, if you can give yourself some grace, then you're better able to give grace to others. I think that's really key. And probably that translates to all of the types. If we can understand ourselves in those ways, we can work better with others.
That's right.
Kim said, in this biz, it can freeze me because I want to do it right and perfect.
Yeah. And, you know, if that's what you're thinking, you are already doing a great job. You know, I tell people, especially in the sales world, like direct sales, that don't want to sound salesy or don't want to come off as, you know, pitchy. And just the fact that you're thinking that tells me that you're not going to be that way.
That's a great point. Okay, that was so good. Thanks, Andrea.
Good. I'm glad that was helpful.
So now I took the screen off. So yeah.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. You just go ahead and do it again.
Okay. Oh, I go and do it again. Let's see. Okay. You'd think that I would be better at this, with
Yay!
After the year that we've had, okay. Type 2s, these are often called our helpers, our supportive advisors. There's so many names. I like to use the numbers because there's no value on numbers. And sometimes words can be triggering, or people can be like, oh no, that doesn't describe me. So anyway, type 2s, they fear being unloved or unwanted. And like I said, 2s have that, they almost put extender feelers out. They sense the emotions and feelings of others so deeply that it can actually feel like their own emotions. So often they don't notice their own emotions because they're so concerned about helping others with and through their own. And they just need to know that they are wanted and loved just for being them. So 2s will help and help and help. They'll serve. And they're not often given that in return because they won't say what they need. And 2s might think, oh, well, people should just know that I need that because it's so intuitive to a 2. But it's not. And so resentment can really be key and vital with a 2 if their needs aren't being met. And a 2 moves toward an 8 in stress. And initially that might look like becoming more aggressive or dominating. But like I said, that movement of stress doesn't have to be a negative move. And once 2s become aware of that movement, they can actually become more direct and confident and actually ask for what they need. And this is called the missing piece. Actually, I forgot to mention that when you can reach the strength of the type that you move toward in stress, that's actually when you are super powerful. You can see how these two are, an 8 and a 2 seem like complete opposites, but when they pull the strengths of the other type, that's actually when 2s just step into their power, and they can have the compassion and love for others, but they can do it in a way that doesn't negate their own needs and their own desires. And then in growth, a 2 moves toward a 4. And instead of worrying so much about other people, they're actually able to go more introspect and figure out what it is that they want, what they're feeling, and not be as concerned about, or not put others' needs at the expense of their own. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, let's talk about superpowers. I should have put this in here. I'm so sorry. But their superpower is really being supportive. They're the caregivers. They're the ones that are going to know what everyone on the team needs. People are going to go to them when they are feeling misunderstood or when they're not feeling valued, because that is the superpower a 2 brings to the table. So let's look at Zaya and the way that 2s might lead within your company. They are going to take such good care of the people that come through. They are going to meet every need. They are going to really focus on building relationships with each person that they interact with, whether the person buys from them or not. So with a 2, I would just say be really careful not to avoid harder subjects. So those invoices, you do actually have to get paid for things. You actually might have some criticism or critiques that come through, and not to avoid those and not to try to just brush them under the rug or appease the person, but to really face those. I don't know exactly how pricing works in Zaya, but twos might avoid talking about price increases or something of that nature. They want to keep everything super positive and super great for everyone, but that isn't always the best in business. There's hard things that we have to talk about in business. And so a two might be, they just might lean more towards the staying completely positive and making a lot of concessions for the customers that really shouldn't be made. And then the book that I would recommend to them. So I actually am a two, and this book, when I read it, I was just like, oh my goodness, every two needs to read this. I don't know if you're familiar with Glennon Doyle, but she has been around for a while. Her lifestyle has completely changed.
I loved this book, Andrea. I loved it.
It is so, and like I said, this isn't just for twos, but the reason I think this is such a great book for twos is because Glennon talks about stepping into your power. And for years and years, in her 20s and her 30s, she talks about how she just made so many concessions and she morphed into the person that she needed to be, or she thought others wanted her to be. And once she kind of found her voice, she realized that that's where her power really is, when she is just fully herself. So
yes, she has a podcast now too, Andrea. I think she's only recorded one, but it was so good.
I mean, she has a voice that just appeals to so many people, even though her lifestyle and things might be really different than other people. She just has a way of kind of speaking to every person, I feel like, and touching on these places and saying it so directly but beautifully. And yeah, so I highly recommend this book, really for everyone, but especially those twos.
Does anybody here feel like you might be a two? I always think of Sarah Ross. She is the quintessential two. If you guys know Sarah, just so loving and helpful, always looking out for others. Okay.
And what's really, when you do have a two, just asking them directly, like, what do you need? If you know someone's a two, because they will try to come off as like, no, I don't need anything. I've got this. I want to take care of you. So in job interviews, a two might even, you're trying to get information about them and they'll be like, well, what about you? Twos are just they want to take care of others. And it's just such an uncomfortable place to step into for a two to acknowledge their own needs. So that's just a way that you can really encourage and support twos in your life.
Okay, so good.
Okay, great. Well, I would say we probably have quite a few type threes. These are our achievers. These are the ones that really are stepping into leadership roles because they are the goal setters and the go-getters. Their fear is really being worthless. They don't want to be incapable and unimpressive and successful. They want and know how to achieve success. It's often said that threes wear different faces in different situations. They know who they need to be to succeed in each situation. So their heart really needs to hear that they're loved and valued for being themselves, and that they don't need to achieve love from you, but that they are just loved for who they are, because they are so focused on success that it's sometimes hard for them to turn off, who do I need to be? And so just letting them know, I just want you to be you. That's who I love. That's who we need here. Under stress, nines, threes, and sixes actually all talk together. They're the only three that move, that each move to the other type. So under stress, a three will move to a nine, and they might become more disengaged at first. But like I said, they can reach that higher place and become more peaceful and accepting of really themselves and just being. Nines are so great at just sitting in silence and really taking in information from others. And that is so powerful for a nine to just be able to get to that place where they can settle and they don't have to be achieving and constantly striving. And during growth, they move toward a 6, and they just really might ask for the opinions of others and be more team oriented than they normally are. And then they become more aware of their feelings as well. Like I said, threes often just ignore their emotions because they have learned, either through someone directly speaking to them or just personally, that feelings do not help with success. They don't serve a purpose in success, so they kind of ignore those. So a 6, pulling in that 6 really does help them pull in that emotional piece. The leadership superpowers of a 3 they are so focused on their goals, but they're also great team builders. They can see the gifts in other people, and they know how to place them on teams and cheer that team on to success. I think that these really are our greatest cheerleaders when it comes to business, because they have such big goals. They're not afraid to dream big. Threes usually are just like, the sky's the limit. And they're going to do whatever they need to do to achieve that success. But what I love about threes is when they are healthy, they're the biggest cheerleaders for others as well, and helping others set those big goals and meeting those goals. So a book for threes is this book called Hustle and Float. And this will really speak to the achieving nature. And I think just our society in general, it's all about hustle, 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 get all the things done. But this will actually, I think, challenge threes to be more creative and not just work their life away and not just strive for that success, whatever is next, but just to learn that balance of working hard, but then also just tapping into that creative nature of a 3. So those are our 3s. Do we have any 3s? I'm guessing we probably do.
I'm a 3.
Yes. So I've taken the test a few times, and I'm either a 3 or a 9. So it's super interesting to hear. Sorry, I'm like multitasking to try to stay away from the kids.
I'm not surprised.
They, depending on the test, I'm a 3 or a 9. So it was actually really interesting to hear how closely they're tied. And so I'm going to be interested to see the 9 too.
Yeah, absolutely. And, tests are only going to be about 70% accurate because they're really measuring behaviors more than motivation. So that's why looking at the motivations and just hopefully that will give you a clear picture. And sometimes it just takes a while to land on our dominant type, but it is really interesting to see how they talk to each other.
It's funny, Katie, that is you to a T.
I know. When I met Andrea, so I took a test a while ago, a couple years ago or whatever, and I was like, I'm a 7, and Monica and I both, like, we were like, you're a 7, you're a 7, you're a 7. And the more I learned about it, the more I was like, I don't really know if I am. And so when I met Andrea, you were the one that kind of helped me figure it out. And I felt so much peace, Andrea. You gave me so much peace because I was like, I don't know. It didn't feel right. And when you helped me understand like my motivation and all of that, it's felt so right to figure out my true type. And so I see Sherry just said she's a 3 and a 7. So maybe when we talk about the 7s, she'll have a little more understanding too. But you said that they share some.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like I said, there's so much to the Enneagram. There are subtypes, there are different triads. I mean, it's insane how we're all so interconnected. But 7s and 3s, they're people. They are usually optimistic. So there are so many similarities. And I think people get mistyped all the time. That's why I really caution people not to type other people, because it can be triggering or like you said, just not feel right. Like everyone says I'm this, I've taken the test. But I think it's important to look at those motivations and know that everyone who's energetic and a people person is not a 7, and everyone who is quiet is not a 5. It just we try to type people based off of stereotypes, and so I just really caution against that. But there are so many similarities, and I have actually put together a guide of how any type can be mistyped as any other type at different seasons. So we just have to be really careful with that.
Yeah, that's good advice. We've got some friends at the gym who are really into the Enneagram, and they'll always, I don't know, drop, there's no way you're a this because you're doing this. And it does, I can see where that can be a little bit damaging to throw that on other people.
Right. And if you ever get into subtypes, and I've got some information on Instagram about this, but so there's 3 subtypes for each type, and depending on the subtype, they can actually look almost the opposite. So it really does come down to those motivations and why they're doing what they're doing. But that could come off looking like any behavior,
So Charmaine is a 3. Sherry 3-7. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And thank you for the book.
Threes.
What's that?
I'm not surprised you have several 3s. I think it's just what you do is such a natural fit, I think, for so many 3s. Just that goal orientation. They can have their own business. You get the freedom and the support, and I think it's just such a great fit for 3s.
Okay. All right.
Move
to 4s.
Moving to 4. So 4s, this is our last group in the heart, that heart instinctual center. They are the ones that go really, really deep into their emotions. And like I said, they are not afraid of melancholy. They're not afraid of pain and sadness. They often have playlists that help them get into their moods, which is so foreign to so many other types that are trying to avoid these emotions. But 4s really, really fear being seen as ordinary. That is their biggest fear. They don't want to be inadequate. They don't want to be emotionally cut off. But really, it's that piece that they do not want to be ordinary. And they need to know that they are special and unique. So that's constantly what the 4 is striving for. So often 4s might have their own sense of style, and they're just not, they're not ashamed of it. They're not afraid to say, this is who I am. And they really want to stand out. They're usually very creative as well. So under stress, a 4 moves to a 2, and they might become clingy and just overly involved in people's lives under stress. Under stress, we're all clinging for security, and our ego is always trying to keep us safe. So that's what they do when they first go to a 2. But as they become aware of that, they become more nurturing and supportive, and they start looking outward more than inward, or at least, it's more of a balance there. And during growth, they move to a 1, and they just become more objective and less emotionally attached to things, and they're able to see things from a more objective viewpoint. They also become more disciplined and grounded. The leadership superpowers of a 4 is that they are going to be super connected interpersonally with others, and they're also very creative. So their Instagram pages will probably look different, but they might even just do things completely different than other reps in your company. They just want to be unique and different. And that's really what's going to appeal to people with that person as well, is that they are different. They're standing out. Maybe they're pairing the clothes differently, or they're accessorizing in unique ways, whatever that looks like. I would say, just for the 4s, be cautious that you not share too many personal stories without listening to those of others. 4s are they just know themselves so well. So they have a story for everything, which is powerful. We just don't want that to become their only focus. And also with 4s, I would caution you just to not, to be careful of the way that you're interpreting comments or responses from customers, and not to take those too personally. A 4 is just going to take things very, very personally. They don't want to, obviously they don't want to offend anyone, but they don't want to be misunderstood. And they need to know that the relationship is authentic. And so if they feel like anyone is being fake, that's just going to turn a 4 off completely. And the book I have for 4s, I actually read this when I was working for a nonprofit. This was one of the books we read together as a team called Creativity Inc. And so Ed Catmull, I don't know if you know anything about him, but he co-founded Pixar, and their company created what was called a brain trust. And they started running their company differently than anyone else at the time. And now a lot of people have kind of obviously taken this idea and morphed it to fit their specific organizations. But I think this will really speak to that creative intuition that fours have, and that need to be different, to do things differently, but to do them well. So do we have any fours here today?
Nobody?
No? Okay, this is a really fun book. Actually, I don't know, Katie, have you and your team done any book studies together?
No, not exactly. We recommend books all the time, but we haven't really done one as a group.
So when we get to the sevens of books, the book I have for sevens, I think is what I would recommend if you want to do something like that. And then I have some other, I have just some other ones, but it's really cool to be reading the same book. Maybe you're reading a couple chapters, or, you know, and discussing it once a month or whatever. But it's so powerful because everyone will take away different things from a book. And I just feel like it's such a powerful way for teams to come together and really be focused on a common goal. And I know that your organization, your company is set up differently than like a nonprofit is, but I just think it's a neat way to get that feedback from others and be like, oh, I never thought of it that way, you know, and to really start trying different things. So
maybe we could do that in our Commit to 13 group this summer, you guys. That'd be great.
Okay, so let's go to our type fives. These are investigative thinkers. They are very committed to research. They are the ones who know all the information about all the things, but they often won't speak up because they never, like, let's go to their fear. They don't want to be seen as ignorant, incompetent. They don't want anyone to feel like they don't know what they're talking about. They want to be an expert, and really they are our experts, but they feel like, gosh, I don't know everything about this topic or this subject, but we never will know that. They just need to know that their needs are not a problem as well. Type fives are not going to ask for help. They're going to have a very close group of just a few people that they share things with. Fives tend to be very, they do tend to be our introverts because they have what I refer to as an energy bank. And anytime they're around people are sucking their energy. So they actually, fives, I know they know exactly how long and how many people they can be around before they just have to be alone again. And one of my type five friends said, I don't have a secret. She said, I have a secret place, but I also have a secret place that no one knows about when I just have to get away from people. So they just need that time to recharge. They are great at behind the scenes things, but they really know their limit when it comes to people. And obviously that's going to look very different. Some want very minimal, some are speakers on stages and they're interacting with people, but they know after they do a big event, they're going to need a couple days to really recharge. So under stress, interestingly enough, they move to a 7 and they might become more hyperactive or scattered, but really that power when they can, when they realize this movement is that they can become more enthusiastic, more imaginative, and really start thinking more creatively. They tend to be very more rigid, and pulling from that 7 helps them be more creative. So under stress, you can see how that would be really helpful. And then during growth, they move toward an 8 and they become more self-confident, decisive, and they really start trusting their instincts more than their knowledge or what they think they know, but they start trusting that instinct inside them. So as leaders, 5s are really great at inspiring others with new concepts and ideas. So they are going to do so in a way that isn't intrusive. They're going to know everything about your product and service. They know everything, and they will be willing to share that, but they're not going to insert their knowledge if it's not asked for, if they don't think it's wanted. So with type 5s, I would just be really cautious not to come across as uncaring or unfeeling, and to actually put yourself out there more, especially when it comes to being a leader and building your business. You're going to have to put yourself out there more, and even risk being intrusive in people's lives. But with a 5, like I said, that can come off a little bit unfeeling and just uncaring, which is not the case at all. It's just the way that they're wired. And so a book that I recommend for 5s is The Brain That Changes Itself. And what's really cool about this book, it's going to give 5s all the research that they need about the brain and how it works, but it will also give them a better understanding of human potential, not only their own, but others. Because 5s can have a hard time understanding people. Like, why would they do that? I just don't understand that. It goes so opposite to what I would think. So I think this book would be really good for them, just to understand, oh, we actually are all wired quite differently. We have, we all have brains, but they work so differently. So I think this would be interesting for a 5 and give them that, what they need as far as information. Any 5s? I'm not surprised if you don't have any 5s or very few 5s on your team.
I'm trying to think of anybody who has all the info.
And this could be, if you have any 6s or 4s, this could be one of their wings that would really be helpful in knowing your products and being able, really 5s would be and are great salespeople if they will actually be willing to put themselves out there and just share the knowledge that they have. Okay, well, let's move on to our 6. These are loyal guardians. These are our best friends. They, like I mentioned before, the 1s have that inner critic. Well, a 6 has a committee. They have a committee in their head that's saying, oh, well, what if this happens? What if this? Did you think about this? I bet you didn't think about this. And so that's where their anxiety comes in. And often people can think 6s are doomsday thinkers or always finding the negative, but really for a 6, that's how they are prepared. That they feel like it's responsible for them to look at all the options and choose the best one. So their core fear is just fear itself, danger, uncertainty, chaos. 6s will look up to an authority figure because they feel like, okay, if you're an authority, you must know about this topic or what's going on here. And they are going to be loyal and follow that person as long as that person doesn't break their trust. And they just need to know that they're safe and secure. That's what their heart needs to know. So in friendships and relationships, 6s just need to know that you have got their back, that you're not going to gossip about them, that they are safe and secure with you, and that they can share their anxiety or their fears with you without being judged harshly, and that you will appreciate that about them. So like I said, our 3, 6s, and 9s all move to the other types. Under stress, a 6 moves towards a 3, and they might become more competitive and even arrogant. But as they pull from the high side of a 3, they become more industrious and really able to set those goals that 3s are so good at doing. And then during growth, they become more relaxed as they move toward a 9, and they begin to take life less seriously and maybe just enjoy others and experiences a little bit more. So type 6s, they're going to be committed to others. And if you haven't already guessed, they're great problem solvers because they're looking at all the options. So they're going to know, hey, have you thought about this to solve this problem? So trust your 6s when they come to you with a solution for a problem because they've already thought of all the other options. So they are positive. They, within a leadership position in your company, they're going to be really good at conveying the opportunities that they've had, but they're also going to tell you some of that they'll be willing to share some of the negative as well. So yeah, this product is great. I love it because of this, but also just beware, you might not love the slits or the way that this is cut if you don't like XYZ. They're going to be good at sharing both in a way that feels very caring to other people. So other people are going to be really drawn to that because they're like, oh, this is someone I can trust because she's not just like, I love everything about this. There's nothing wrong with it. However, with sixes, just be careful that you don't fall too much into that negative where you're sharing because you think it's helpful, but others are like, oh, why would I ever buy that? So just be really careful about that balance, because really when a six is healthy and standing in their power, they're going to be really great at sharing these products with people in a way that feels really real. And a book for sixes that I think would be great is called The Art of Gathering. It's how we meet and why it matters. So like I said, they're our best friends. They love to host. So many other types love to host too, but this will just really reassure them the importance of living meaningfully, but really those relationships that they're building, why that is so important and how that's such a gift. Those are our sixes. Do we have any sixes here?
I was just chatting with Gina on here, wondering if she's maybe a six. She's kind of thinking that maybe that is part of hers. Oh, Julie. Okay. And Kim, you had said that you used to think you were a six.
It is thought that sixes might be the most common Enneagram type. So, you know, we all know sixes. We all do, whether you have them here today or on your team, but sixes really make the world go round. They're the loyal ones that are, they're really happy to follow suit if they know that it's safe and it's good. So they're also the ones that, like I said, are helping solve our problems.
I love knowing that about when you said trust the sixes when they have a solution to a problem, because they've already done all the problem solving. That's really helpful.
And you know, I think it's so important for us to realize the way that our initial reaction to people might be one way. So if a six is constantly like, but guys, what about this? But guys, what about this? But you know, it can seem like, oh my goodness, not again. But really that's their power. They're thinking of all these ways, and they're not trying to say, oh, this is the worst idea ever. They're actually trying to make it so that you come up with the best solution that is, you know, that's going to have the least hiccups. So yeah, trust your sixes with that for sure. And also that will be empowering to them because they, like I said, they tend to look to authority so much. And I think it's so powerful when a six just learns to trust, like, actually I do have answers and I have authority. I've already thought of all this and tried XYZ. So yeah, I think that would be really empowering for a six too.
Andrea, Gina said, are they indecisive?
Yeah. Yes. That critic, the committee, that critic committee in their head is, because they'll be like, oh, but if we do this, then this could happen. If we do this, this could happen. Yes. Sixes are definitely going to struggle. Like I said, so it's going to be so empowering when a six actually comes forward and says, guys, I think we should do this. Trust them because yes, that indecisive nature is so real for a six.
Gina, it's like when we met for lunch and it took you 30 seconds to figure out what you were going to get to drink. And you were going through, well, I don't need coffee because I had the coffee, but the tea, but there are flavors. And I love it. Okay, Gina, so you just learned to trust yourself on this webinar.
Yes, do it, girl. You are a powerful force that we need, and so loyal and just caring and compassionate and really
just wants to do it right. Just wants to do things right. Yes.
And fiercely loyal to your people too. So I think anytime you have the trust of anyone, it's just an honor and a privilege, but especially people who need to really know, okay, can I trust you? Are you trustworthy?
Yes.
Those are definitely
are sixes introverted some too? Julie's asking.
Yes, sixes can. I mean, any type can really be anywhere. I would say 5s, it's less likely that they're going to be extrovert, and it's less likely that 7s are going to be introverted, but 6s can fall either way. They can be very extroverted, they can be very introverted, they can be somewhere in the middle. Yeah.
So good. This is so helpful.
Good. I'm so glad.
Okay.
Okay, well, our 7s, and I would not be surprised if you have some 7s on your team,
yes,
are entertaining optimists. They're often thought of the life of the party. However, 7s also can be a little bit quieter, which is surprising to people. But like I said, those subtypes really can affect our behavior. But they fear being deprived. They don't want to be trapped. And they don't want to be bored. That's really the main thing with 7s. They are constantly trying to fill themselves with new experiences, new things, new people, so that they're not bored. They just have a fear of being bored. So they need to know that they will be taken care of, that that you're not going to leave them stranded, that they just need to know that they're going to be taken care of. Oh goodness. Oh, I'm sorry. I totally don't have my lines for these. Let's see. So in growth, let me go back here really quick to see who goes to the 7. Okay, so what's interesting about the Enneagram, see how the 5 goes to a 7 in stress. So a 7 in growth actually goes to a 5. So a 7 will become when they're in growth, they learn to not be so scattered, and they come down and they'll do the research. They'll actually commit themselves to sticking it out. And then in growth, a 7 goes to a 1. And that's helpful because, like I said, they can maybe be a little bit scattered, and a 1 will help them just be more focused and clear. 7s really need to get comfortable just being bored. That's where they are going to really be able to fall into maybe the painful emotions that they're trying to avoid, and really find growth and discover who they are without all the things that they're trying to fill themselves with. So the superpowers of a 7 are their vision and their optimism. What's great about 7s, like the 4s, 7s are very, very creative, and they are creative in problem solving. Because they don't want to be bored, they're thinking, I don't want to do this the same old way. How else can we do it? So 7s are going to bring ideas to the table, and they're going to be so excited about them. And as a team member for a 7, it's important that you take them seriously. 7s are often not taken seriously because they're like, oh, they're all over the place. But they have the power of really thinking of things that no one else ever has. So Susie, who I work with, she's a 7, and she thinks all out here. And for her to commit to things, that's what she needs to do. So I would just caution 7s with that. But it's amazing the way that she dreams, and the things that she thinks of, and the way that she solves problems in ways that I would never even consider, because it's so out of my realm of possibility. So with 7s, if you are a 7, just be really mindful that you commit yourself, that you stick to things and you see them through. Because a 7, like I said, they're constantly wanting to fill that tank, to not be bored. But I just challenge you to be comfortable sitting still sometimes, and to see things through. That's where your power is going to really shine through. So with one of my 7 friends, it was New Year's years ago, when we could actually have big New Year's parties. And I think she had like 4 or 5 New Year's parties to go to because she didn't want to miss out on anything. And that's a lot of partying for me. I couldn't do that, but she could. But this is a book that I was talking about that I highly recommend teams to work through together. It's Essentialism. And this is one of my all-time favorite books. It talks about doing less talks about doing more in less time. So really how to use our time wisely to make the biggest impact. And you focus on the things that need to be done, instead of getting bogged down in all the little details. So I think this will be really great for 7s in helping them focus and complete tasks. But really, this is a great book for anyone and everyone looking to develop those leadership skills or to run their business more effectively and efficiently. Any 7s?
I love that book.
Yes. Have you read it?
Yes, it helped. I mean, I honestly think it kind of changed my life in a little, and it sounds very big, but I read that book and I just cut out a bunch of stuff that was not serving me. And then I felt lighter.
Yeah. And I think for a 3 too, definitely that goal setting nature that you have, you probably set a lot of goals, and this will really, I think it just talks about, you don't have to do it all. Let's just do these things really well, and then you can move on. But sometimes people who dream big, the problem is just like where to start and where to focus your energy, because if you scatter it, you're not going to do anything well. So it's really focusing it so that you can do things well. And I know a lot of masterminds right now that are reading this book. It's a powerful book.
Okay, that's great advice. I think we'll read that one. I think that will be great for this summer. So Sherry is kind of trying to figure out if she's a 3 or a 7. I bet that happens a lot, Andrea, that the 3s and the 7s get a little bit confused.
Yep, or 4s and 7s, they can mix a lot. So it really just goes down to that motivation and looking at what really drives me. So as a 3, is it that I don't want to be seen as incompetent? That, is it more of like the goals that I'm setting, or as a 7, is it just that I'm trying to fill like not being bored? Is there something, did I learn something along the way that taught me it's not good to be still and bored? Mm-hmm. So really looking at those.
In the book, The Road Back to You by Ian Cron, I'm working my way through it now. I have to go slow because I find his voice a little irritating and I'm listening to it. So I have to take it in. I'm like, is he like harping at me? But anyway, I love the part with each number. He talks about the numbers in childhood and how they learned these behaviors. That is so fascinating to me, and it's helped me go back to things in my childhood that I didn't think were important or relevant, and realizing, oh, those things shaped me. Those little things, shaped me.
Yep. And it could be something as small as something a teacher said to us, or parents. And I think it's really a combination of nature and nurture. I think we were all born with certain, gifts and intuition, but I think our parents and teachers, and if we, those who were really like spiritual guiders for our faith, they do shape us, and the negative and good, we're pulling it all in, but the way that we evaluate things in our head and analyze things and then apply them to our lives is going to be so different. But absolutely, it is interesting. And it's believed that your Enneagram type doesn't change, but your levels of health will change. So you might look like one type or another in different seasons of life.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that it didn't change. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, according to the Enneagram, some people don't agree with that. And I mean, like I said, I'm not hard and fast, like, oh, it has to be this. But I think it makes sense that since we're dealing with the motivations, that our motivation isn't changing, but those behaviors might. So we might, as a 7, you might look like a 3 in certain times of your life. You also might look like a 4, or that 5. If you're really in stress, you might look a lot like a 5 for a season or a period of time.
That's helpful. Okay, I'm excited for you to talk about 8s because I think this is my daughter, my oldest daughter.
Your daughter is okay.
I think so.
I think for women, sometimes it's really hard to be an 8 as a woman, or to really claim this. I mean, we'll talk about that a little bit more. So one thing I will say, the 8s and 2s are connected. A lot of women will mistype themselves as a 2 because culturally we're kind of taught to be 2s, like to care for others, to take care of the home and the children and all the things. So a lot of women initially, at least, are very opposed to the Enneagram if they think they're an 8 because it feels negative to them. But oh my goodness, I love 8s. So these are our protective challengers, and they do not want to be wrong, weak, or powerless. That is their fear. So everything they do, all the decisions they make are centered around this fear of not being powerless. They don't want to be humiliated, and their heart needs to know that they won't be betrayed. So if you have the trust of an 8, that is something to cling to, because these are forces, and 8s really have an energy about them. And what I caution 8s with is, man, at their healthiest, they are the snow plows for others. They pave the way. They're not going to hold people's hands, but they'll pave the way and help people get there. So they're the snow plows. They are most empowering people, because they're like, come on, I did it, you do it, let's go. I've already gotten some of the big boulders out of the way. So now it's your turn. But when they are unhealthy, they can actually be bulldozers, and they can just plow right over people. And so with 8s, I say, be very careful. There's that fine line between being assertive and being aggressive. So just be careful with that 8s. Under stress, they move to a 5, and they become more secretive and really fearful of their information, which is so counterintuitive of an 8, because they're usually so sure of themselves. They don't question. They are not like a 6. Type 8s are not going to be indecisive. When they want to do something and they decide this is the way I'm going to do it, they just go for it. But once they realize, man, I'm moving towards a 5, they can actually become more analytical and objective, and really can start considering other people's points of views more than themselves as well. And during growth, they move to a 2. And so they become more open-hearted and caring. And not that they aren't that, but it becomes more outward when they're in these seasons of growth. And they might show more empathy and compassion that they just typically hide, because they don't, like a 3, 8s don't really see a need or a purpose to be outwardly affectionate to people. They think you do it well. I was talking to an 8 one time, and she told me, I don't need to be in control, but don't try to control me. So 8s just think everyone needs to be responsible for themselves. You know the right thing to do, you're going to do it. And something that can be a little bit intimidating for 8s and many of the other types is that they just think of anger as an energy. So they're very expressive with anger. They're very confrontational, because to them it's just like, let's get this out and move on. But others of us are like, oh my goodness, does this person hate me? And we internalize it more. 8s they just get it all out there, which I love, which is something to know. Our gifts and our superpowers, when they're misused, can actually be the biggest weapon against other people and ourselves. So just be mindful. And I think 8s are just the easiest to talk about, because theirs is the most outward. But that assertive and aggressive piece for the 8 is something to be really mindful of. Their leadership superpower is that they are empowering, and they are going to be our biggest advocates for injustice. They fight for what they feel is right, and they are going to fight for people who do not have a voice. So when it comes to leading and like the company Zaya or any other kind of direct sales, they're going to go above and beyond with sales. They're going to be excellent at sharing their services, but even going above and beyond what's expected, because they know the importance of that, and they know how much they value that. But like I said, just be mindful, 8s, that you don't come off as intimidating, and that your passion doesn't come off as just overpowering or even pushy. So 8s can really be pushy salespeople if they're not really careful, because they're so passionate. So I can imagine if you're selling your activewear and you're an 8, you love this activewear, and you have no doubt that everyone else should love it. So just be really careful that passion doesn't come off as really pushy, because that's really off-putting to people, and they're like, okay, why is this person trying to get me to buy this? Like really what's behind this? So a book for our 8s is another Brene Brown book called Daring Greatly. And this is just great because 8s do not like to be vulnerable. Like I said, they don't want to be seen as powerless, and often vulnerability to them is tied to being powerless. But for them to recognize that in vulnerability, that's actually going to be a huge strength for them. And that will help them lead well, and that they will lead with joy, creativity, and empathy. And this is really one of my favorite books of hers. Do we have any 8s on the team? I know, Katie, you said your daughter is, but are there any people on the team? I'm sure you know 8s. 8s, you can kind of tell because, like I said, they just have an energy. They have a power about them, and it's like an unapologetic, unashamed, here I am.
I'm sure we have some 8s. I'm sure we do, but maybe not on this call.
Right. Yep. 8s, I have so many good friends who are 8s, and I see how the pairing of an 8 or 2 is so beautiful because 8s are such a powerhouse and 2s are so compassionate. And when they learn to work together, it's really powerful.
I love that.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, I'm always thinking about Sarah when you say 2, just because she is like, I just love her, and she's just embodies that. But she's been looking for like an accountability partners, and I wonder if that, knowing your trait and the other numbers that pair well could be a good way to partner up at some point.
Yeah. And I would say really, people ask me quite often, is there a certain type I should date, or, like with relationships specifically? And I would say any healthy type is compatible with any other healthy
that's
type.
nice.
Because, right, like you don't want to know, like, oh man, we're incompatible. No type is incompatible. It's when we are unhealthy, we are incompatible with everyone because we are at odds with ourselves and with everyone else. But I do think even looking at those growth and stress, I can't speak right now, those lines, I think that could be a really powerful relationship as far as accountability, because when you pull those opposite traits, there's power in that. And just learning to see the world from someone who sees things so differently from you, there's power in that.
Maybe, Monica, that's why we're such a good team, because we do bring kind of different motivation and obviously different strengths to the team as well.
Absolutely.
I have done a lot of research, mention that, between 1 and 3s, and it does seem like we are a good pair, good match.
It's funny though. Somebody at the gym, the same person who likes to drop this Enneagram knowledge, told me there's no way I could be happily married to another 3. Like we would have killed each other by now. And I'm like, well, we're going on like 18 years. So I feel like we're doing pretty well.
And that would be an example of using the Enneagram as a weapon. And not that person is doing it maliciously, but when we say things like that, then we are limiting. Right. It's damaging and also limiting, like, why can't I?
Right.
Why? And that's often said of 2s and 7s too, is why I say this, like 2s have a hard time with 7s because 7s are all over the place, and 2s want to care for people and they don't often feel cared for by 7s. But that's really an unhealthy 7. I'm working with a 7 right now, and we do great because I have that one wing where I can get the things done. She dreams big, and I'm like, okay, so here's what we have to do to make that happen and care for the people along the way. But, I want everyone to know the Enneagram. Like I said, I don't want this to be a limitation on you. I want you to see actually all the, look at all the possibilities. Look how individually and beautifully unique everyone is. And if we're all working together and all working towards being healthy people that are working towards growth, look how beautiful it would be if we all came together and appreciated these gifts and brought all of our gifts to the table.
Can I ask a question? And maybe you don't know the answer, Andrea, but I'm just I know that the Enneagram has really old roots, and monks were studying it, and Richard Rohr, is he the one that developed it or figured it out? Like, how did they come up with these 9 numbers? I mean, it's kind of fascinating.
It is. It actually has ancient roots. It goes back, we don't even know how far back it goes. And there was a lot of like mysticism and spirituality around it in ancient times. But and I have no idea how the 9 types were landed on. You know, that's just whoever developed it. That's what they were noticing, I guess. But the Enneagram that we use today is really from Hudson and Rosso, which if you've gone to the Enneagram Institute, the website, that, and I recommend people going there. They are psychologists, and so they really took the Enneagram and made it what we study today. So it's not as spiritual, and it can be. I mean, people definitely use it in that way, but this is more based on the psychology and the observation of human behaviors now.
Okay.
And
so fascinating.
Yeah, that, and who knows why it's 9. I mean, because then there's Myers-Briggs, there's the DISC test, there's Strengths Finders, there's so many personality types. I think why I really like the Enneagram is just because it allows for that movement that some of the other ones I felt, and I just don't think I completely understood Myers-Briggs, because I'm not introvert or extrovert. I'm actually almost exactly in the middle. I've taken that test twice. One time I got introvert, one time I got extrovert. And it wasn't until I talked to a psychologist about it, and he told me, like, you are so much on the line. It just depends your season of life, where you are, what you need to be in that time. But I'm really comfortable, and I'm not one extreme or the other. And I would say most of us fall somewhere in that middle section. And with the Enneagram, I think that's true too. There are certain traits that I don't necessarily like find in myself, but I find so much, like, really, I found so much relief just knowing, like, oh, I need to set boundaries, because as a do, saying no was so hard for me, and it ran me to burnout. And I was working in a nonprofit organization that was unhealthy anyway. And I would be on my phone doing FaceTime calls with our staff overseas at 2 a.m. You know, I just didn't have a good boundary because I didn't think that I could. So just learning, like, actually, that taking care of myself is the way that is, if I'm not taking care of myself, I can't take care of others. And that's true for everyone. If we're not pouring from an empty cup, from the overflow of a, if we are not serving others from a full cup that's overflowing, we're serving from an empty cup, and it's probably feeling really draining and not helpful.
So good.
So that's why I got into all this. But yes, good question. And it does go really far back. And I think that also kind of, some people are really leery about it with its ancient roots, but I think it's so powerful, and there's so much to learn. And it has opened my eyes a lot to why other people might act or think differently, and how their motivation really, you know, oh, you did that because this is actually how you're viewing things.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, our last type are peaceful mediators. These are the ones who are so passionate about harmony. They want peace. They want everyone to get along. They fear conflict. They fear being loveless, uncomfortable, unimportant. They, and that's where their kind of mediation is going to come in. But they need to know that their presence matters. And with that, I would also say their voice matters. 9s are often thought to be asleep to themselves, and that comes from their ability to see everyone else's perspectives on things. And so they will often ignore their own needs and wants because they're trying to keep peace and harmony with other people. They have the ability to, they can hear various viewpoints, and they'll be like, oh, I can see where you're coming from. I can see where you're coming from, and help people find a middle ground, which is so powerful for the 9s. Under stress, they're going to move to the 6, and they might be, they're going to pull that more anxious, the anxiety of a 6, and really maybe become more worried than they normally would be. But as they become more aware of that movement, they can actually be more prepared and practical in nature. And during growth, they move to a 3. And I love this movement as well for a 9. So they just can become more energetic, and they learn that peace really does come when they show up as themselves, that they don't have to try to make peace for everyone else, but they can be more comfortable with stirring the pot a little bit and understanding that their ideas, their thoughts, their presence is not a burden for others, but it's actually very powerful. One of my friends who is a 9, she is just a 9. She's a professor at the University of Alabama, and she's been in charge of the whole COVID relief and all of that for Tuscaloosa since this started. So it's been this pressure on her, and she's had to learn to find her voice and say, like, no, I actually do know what I'm talking about with infectious diseases. This is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it for the whole really city. And then that goes to the whole state. So it's been so fun to watch her just step into that as a 9 and realize I am an expert in this field, and I'm gonna voice this. I'm not just gonna listen to everyone else who has opinions on it. I actually have knowledge. So that is definitely been so fun to watch. They are great at creating peace and resolving problems. So in sales, they're going to be trustworthy, they're going to be relaxed, and they're going to do a great job at building rapport with others. So you can see how a 9 would be really great at answering questions, at listening to the opinions of others, and really saying, okay, I understand that. I understand this. Let me tell you about this product I have. However, I would just really caution a 9 that you not, like a 2 could do this too, but not brush things under the rug for the sake of peace, that you actually address the hard conversations, that you don't go to avoidance when you get a negative comment or a bad review or whatever it is, that a 9 really stands in their what's what I'm looking for, and their knowledge of what they're doing, and their belief that, no, what I'm doing is right. Everyone's not going to agree with that, and that's okay. And to just let go of that need to keep the peace at all costs. And a book that I think would be great for 9s is this book called The Year of Yes. And it will just challenge them to take risks by saying yes to things that would be more comfortable to say no, and just showing up fully as themselves in their lives. So those are our 9s. Do we have any 9s?
Somebody said, Susan said she's a 9.
Okay.
Anybody else? Krista, did you figure out what your type is?
Not really. This one talks to me a little bit too. I'm just like the queen procrastinator. Is there anything that's, I don't know, leans towards that?
It's interesting that you say that, because 9s often, so I don't know if you've heard, there's a quote that says something like, I have so much to do, so I'm going to take a 2-hour nap, or something like that. That's the mentality. That's the mentality of a 9, because they have things to do, but sloth is their weakness. And not that that's laziness necessarily, but it is that fact that they're asleep to themselves. And sometimes when a 9 becomes so overwhelmed with things, they check out. Yeah. So, I mean, and it's just, that is something, it's a coping mechanism, right? It's what you do to protect yourself. And maybe that gives you energy then to do what you need to do. And so that can be good and bad, right? It can also just be avoiding what you need to do, but it could also be what your body needs and listening to your body in those situations.
Yeah, I feel that really hard.
Okay. Yeah. I think 9s feel really misunderstood a lot of the time, because they don't want people to think they're lazy. 9s are not lazy. Like, anyone can be lazy. That's not a trait of a 9. But just that the fact that they are so concerned with maintaining peace that they often don't insert themselves. And something I asked my friend one day, I was like, do you know in a conversation whose turn it is to speak? Like, you're keeping track. And so they can often be talked over because they won't insert themselves, but they're like, hey, it was my turn to talk. And she's like, that's me in a room full of these men in the medical field, where I have the knowledge. They're throwing all these opinions, but you know, I'm having to learn to insert myself and say, actually, we're going to stop the conversation right here because this is what we're going to do. And I'm like, wow. So I don't know if that relates to you too, just like, oh, you kind of know whose turn it is to talk, and it might be hard for you at a restaurant to tell the server that your food wasn't done well, or you didn't get what you ordered or something.
I was literally just gonna say that. You took it right out of my mouth. Like that is totally me. And I will tell people that. Like if I ordered a steak and got like an undercooked piece of chicken, I'd be like, oh, I'm not gonna say anything. It's okay.
It's fine. It's fine.
I'll get salmonella. It's fine. Krista, and maybe, you know, I know you had kind of a lot happen as a young girl, and so maybe reading that part in The Road Back to You about how nines came to just want peace in their life and want everybody to be happy, like no matter what. I think that probably would speak to you as well.
Okay.
I love nines. They are like so like just chill and happy, and like I really enjoy a 9.
Mm-hmm.
A 9 is it feels really like soothing to my 3. Mm-hmm. It's like the chill to my anti-chill.
Yeah. And I think that is called the harmony triad, that the 9, 3, and 6. And I can totally see that, and working really well with, like I said, just almost the extreme opposite. What goes against who you naturally are, to be around someone that is confident in that. There's something freeing in that when we're confident in who we are and we're just able to use that. I think that's powerful.
I do too. Krista, this was big. This was big for you then. Now that you kind of know, now you can learn more about that type and feel it, you know, put it on and feel it.
For sure. Yeah, that was great.
Good. I'm so glad. And I hope that this is really freeing to you. And then not that you know, everything you do is going to be centered around the Enneagram, but then as you learn more about the type and how the behaviors you tend to pull toward as you fall into unhealthy places, it's just a really great trigger, not in a bad way, but in a good way. Like, oh, I'm starting to act this way. I actually need to be more assertive in these situations. I need to do XYZ to pull myself into health where I can really serve from a place of power, you know, use my gifts and talents in that way. For all of us, really, not even just 9s, for all of us.
I definitely found my daughter too. People talk about their daughters. Yeah, she is a total 4.
Okay. Oh yeah.
She really is. I mean, she's very unique, and I asked her, I just texted her and asked her if she'd taken the test. She's like the queen of workshops. So I'm in an Enneagram workshop, and I'm like, do you know what number you are? And she's like, I think I've taken a test at some point, but I'm like, you're a 4.
4s and 7s are actually like our biggest cheerleaders of the Enneagram, and 5s are the ones that, you know, they'll tell you one time that I think I'm a 5, but they don't put any stock into it. But our 4s and 7s tend to be our biggest cheerleaders of it.
Oh, of the Enneagram. They love it.
Love it. The 7s that I know are just so excited about it. And that's kind of sometimes their leading question. What's your Enneagram type? Especially after they first learn about it. And I'm like, just be mindful that like, when you know someone's Enneagram type, you don't actually know them. You know traits and maybe tendencies of them, but obviously we never know someone until we actually get to know them as a person. It's a powerful tool, I think, once you actually know people. Yes. And then it helps you understand, oh my goodness, yes, I do see that in you. And that's a beautiful quality. But to just think, oh, we are a 9. Well, I know everything about you.
Right. It's not a fast pass to the ride. You still need to know them.
Yeah.
Is anybody else still like trying to figure it out? Or, I mean, is this a good time to ask you questions?
Yes, ask away.
So let's stop the screen share.
Yep.
So we can see each other. How do I do that? New options.
Yeah, I can't. Oh, wait, I think I can stop share. Let me see.
There we go. Okay. Does anybody have, I know a few people had to go and they all said thank you. Are you feeling better about it, Sherry?
Yeah, I think I'm more a 3 than a 7. I find it interesting too, because as I'm thinking about this, it probably is true. People go into certain careers kind of based on their personality, right? Because like you said, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of 3s on this call. And I feel like that's more like the entrepreneur, like we kind of need goals. And I apologize if my connection's not the greatest. So if I go in and out, let me know. Because actually, so one of the things I found like in my career, because I am an achiever, that's like one of my strengths too. So like I had to get the straight A's. I had to go like get the top degree in my career, got there, but I knew I didn't want to like open a practice or anything like that. And so I was kind of bored. I mean, like a 7. But so, and I feel like the network marketing, like I feel like there's always a goal that I can like kind of strive for. Whereas I felt like I got to the top of where I wanted to go in that career. So I just found that interesting. I also found it like after I graduated with my degree, I went like literally like just graduated. Maybe a week later, I was on the computer looking for like med schools to apply to. I'm like, why? I just got my doctorate as a physical therapist. Like, why do I feel like, like that's the achiever? That's like, I needed a next goal. So yeah, I think I found my home in like this industry and within Zaya. So I feel like I am a 3 because I do need like goals to strive for. And I love like cheering people on, and I love like team building and helping others reach their goals.
So Sherry, it sounds like you don't actually have a hard time following through on those goals though. You're a big dreamer. So I think the difference would be a 7 can think of the things, but it might be harder. They really have to be focused to achieve those. It seems like you achieve your goals and then you move on to the next thing because you've achieved that.
Mm-hmm.
Which might be.
But I will say like sometimes it is hard to achieve goals, right? Like you, so that's probably why I've got kind of both. Yeah.
That's great. Any other questions or thoughts?
I think that's how I figured out I was a 3 too. It was like, oh yeah, actually I do follow through on these things. Like I don't have a hard time committing or getting things done. And that helped a lot. And also Sherry, maybe that helped me, which is like a 7 is from the thinking triad. Is that right, Andrea?
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't really, I use my gut. Like I do things without really thinking through them, quite honestly, because I have a feeling for if it's right or wrong. And that was really a turning point for helping me figure it out. Because those are very different, your head or your gut.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And actually what's interesting, it's interesting that you say that because 3s are actually in the heart. So as you're thinking, you are probably actually leading with feeling, but acknowledging that as thinking, because your feelings are like, nope, not going there. especially painful emotions are hard for most of us to really sink into if we're not a 4. Because we want to fix, and positive means happy and no problems, but actually there's a lot of power when we're able to sit in the pain and figure out, why is this painful? What am I learning through this? Which 4s are great at doing that.
Mm-hmm. I need a good 4 in my life. My brother is an unhealthy 4.
Okay.
And I need a good 4 in my life to help me, because I totally agree. Those feelings, it's like, I don't have time for that. Like I got it. That is annoying and I don't want to go there. And I could use somebody to make me sit in those feelings. What was it? What on Glennon Doyle's podcast? Did you listen to it, Monica? Have you listened to it yet? It was really long. It was like an hour.
No, I have. I made it through just like the first 10 minutes. Yeah, I haven't listened to it all.
Okay. Well, at the end, she talks about how everybody needs, she called it a pod squad. And then she was like, I know that's really lame. And that sounds really lame. But she was talking about a woman who during COVID would meet up with her, some girlfriends like once a week and go for a walk. And they would all be able to talk about something that they were dealing with that was hard in their life that week. And the other women would just listen, and it wasn't a place to fix it. It was just a way to get it out. And so on this podcast, she was saying we all need that, like just a small group of people where you can just say your problems and be in the pain of them without trying to fix them. And I'm like, okay, I mean, I need to do that. So watch out, Monica, I might be unloading on you more, but just where you can kind of get rid of that hard thing without like needing to fix it or having a solution or being, on an agenda. And I definitely could use more of that in my life.
I feel like you did that just a couple weeks ago.
I did. It was like a few days ago. I made myself do that. Yes, because I need to do that. But when you're so focused on your goals, feelings are really a pain.
Yeah. And a lot of people repress their feelings just because they do realize they think, how is this serving me? This isn't going to help me get to XYZ. Whereas 4s are just like, I don't know how to survive without acknowledging these feelings and without entering into that melancholy that provides the sweetness of their soul. And I just think, wow, it is a superpower.
Because it is a superpower.
2s, 7s, and 9s, they fall in the optimist. And I mean, obviously 7s are optimists as well, and 3s can be, but they fall into that triad in that they will literally avoid negative, like they're trying to fix every negative feeling. Like that's the job of negative feelings, is to be fixed by positive, when that's not the case. There's a reason for everything, and there's a season. We need time to mourn when we've lost somebody or lost something. And I think if we don't allow ourselves to do that, we're probably not going to be in the best place to step into the next thing in our lives.
Krista is having come to Jesus moment with her type.
I love it.
Your presence matters. Your presence matters, Krista. You are a huge part of this team. You matter. We need you here.
Yes.
Anybody else have questions for Andrea?
I mean, I know we're not supposed to like type other people, but I am kind of interested in going back and kind of listening through this again, or just like reading about it, just to kind of see where Andrew lies and my kids. Like, I'm not going to type them, but like nothing like really, and I think I was more focused on myself, but nothing really like stood out for me on them. So I would just be interested, at least for Andrew, kind of like where he is.
Yeah. And even like a lot of, my dad will never take the Enneagram test. But even just asking questions, because like I said, you don't have to know someone's Enneagram type, but we often, like, I don't type people. I'm never going to tell someone you're this type or this type.
Right.
In my mind, I can kind of think, okay, they tend to lean this way. So when in my interactions with them, for instance, my friend is a very much needs her buckets filled with information. So when she asks me questions, sometimes it feels accusing, like that I don't know what I'm talking about, or, and I've had to realize she's a processor. So we did Strengths Finders as a team years ago, and she is high input. She needs to fill like every bucket before she can make a decision. Whereas I feel like I'm not like that. And so the question she would ask, like, well, what about, have you thought about this? And do we have all the stats on this and that? And she actually is a 5, and 5s tend to feel that they're really hard for me to understand. So I feel it was so good for me to know, like, oh, you're not asking this because you don't think I don't know. You just need to know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will say, like, he's my calm to my 3. Like, he's calm. I don't know if it helps, like he's an attorney, he has his own firm, but like even like lately, because I'm like I have my faith, and I have my viewpoints on medicine and all the things, and I'm always just like, I want to know where your stance is. Like, I don't know if that helps you kind of let me know where he kind of falls, but he won't tell me. Like, he's an attorney, but you would think he would have, like, he would always tell me the things, but Yeah, he's a mystery.
Yeah, I don't know. I would say, just look at the ones that you think he might, if he's not super overshare with himself, that could be a 9, it could be a 5. But like I said, when you start digging into the subtypes, those could be almost any number that look like other numbers. So it would really come down to why he does that. Like, is it just, what's motivating him to make all of his
I think because he doesn't want to, if his view is different, he doesn't want, maybe the peacemaker, he doesn't want to be, odds
which would
against
be
him.
interesting as an attorney. That is
Right. Right.
But actually,
maybe it's just with me. Like maybe he acts like a chameleon, right? Like outside of my world, he's this way, and then inside of my world, he's this way.
But it could also be a really big superpower in that, where he's able to listen to his clients to really understand the case without inserting his own, on things, and then present the case from the side that he's already, okay, I know what's going on, and here we go. And I mean, I'm sure that he probably has a strong 8 wing if he is a 9, and he's able to go in there and be assertive with what he knows. But I think that could be a huge superpower for an attorney, in that they're not trying to be like, oh, well, this is how I feel about it, or this is my opinion on it. But they're truly just listening to their clients and the witnesses, or whatever else, all the people involved, and able to make a case around that without inserting themselves into it.
That makes total sense, because he's a defense attorney, right? He can't have his own thoughts. Like he's just looking at facts. So, but I won't take any more of that time. Any other Zaya reps on here that want to chat?
I don't have any questions. Does anybody else?
No, but thank you so much, Andrea. I loved it. I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch it again.
Oh, I'm so glad. Thank you for having me. And like I said, this is just a tool, right? It's one piece, and there are so many different personality types and so many different ways of understanding people. And I just think that is the heart of what I hope people gain, is that they will see people and really have that compassion and learn to love people, even the ones that we do not understand. This has helped me, like I said, just understand 5s better, and realize like, oh my goodness, okay, this is actually how I can love you better. Whether I know for sure they're a 5 or not, I can, I have this understanding of what they might need, and how their behaviors are really affected by their motivations, which are very different than mine.
Right. I agree. Well, people are saying great things in the chat, and we really appreciate your time.
Oh, I've had so much fun, and I love, oh my goodness, these light and tights are so fun. They're so soft, and I love the pockets. None of my leggings have the pockets. I was always kind of afraid to add bulk there, but they don't. They're just so nice. So
I know.
Good. Thank you. Thank you for all you do. I mean, I just want to say, I think as I am learning more about direct sales and just how it works and what you do, I just want to say it's amazing. And I just applaud you all for stepping out and chasing your dreams and goals and achieving huge things. Like just the things that I see people achieving through direct sales is amazing too. So keep up the great work. And I believe in your stuff for sure. Katie, thank you for sending me this. It's such a nice gift, and just so fun to be a part of the group today. And my
and even matching. I mean, I literally didn't remember it until I walked down here. I have 800 tanks, and that's the one I sent you. Really quick, Andrea, Gina just asked if you have a recommended link to take a test. It's the Enneagram Institute, right? That's the one you recommend?
Yeah, I'll say that is what's called the Ready test. And I think it's like $12. It maybe has gone up to $15. But if you're looking for a free test, there are lots of them. Your Enneagram coach has, I think, a really great free test and what she adds to the descriptions and the definitions and things. It is more, there is a faith element in that, which you could ignore if that isn't your thing. But as far as free tests go, I would recommend hers. But like I said, no test, any test, whether you pay or it's free, it's only going to be about 70% accurate. So just keep that in mind. And what I sent to Katie today has websites, podcasts, books that I recommend. If you're not following Enneagram and Coffee, I think she does a great job of bringing various views, even from the different types. So you can see how different ones all look different and different threes. Right now she's doing a summit and she has a panel of just different Enneagram types, which is fascinating because I think that helps dispel those stereotypes that we want to cling to because stereotypes help us understand people to an extent. The problem happens when we won't let people be anything other than the stereotype or step outside of that.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I hope you all have a great weekend and a wonderful summer.
Yes, you too. I'll talk to you soon, Andrea. Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye-bye.